you okay?
I'm too comfortable already.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's such a great pleasure to be back here in the Singapore Maritime Week, and very privileged to be able to have this conversation with a dear friend, Arsenio, whom I've known since 2019. Yep. And I would say during those days, especially in the COVID crisis, we've collaborated a lot. From crew change, vaccination, keeping the ports open. Arsenio is always the force behind making things happen. And for today, since we have only 14 minutes, I would like to launch directly into the questions per se, and after a while, we will open the stage for some questions. Okay. Now, Arsenio, if you have not, I know you have not read, today's local paper, you are on the front page with your interview with the local media. And we are now hit with another major disruption, Straits of Hormuz. And in the interview, I would like to quote you. There are two key messages I took out of it. I'll help you recall. Standing up for freedom of navigation sends the right message. We need global community to rally behind a de-escalation of the conflict to allow us to trade as usual. Second key message, I think that's music to ears to many of the shipping companies here and our union, I'm sure Sister Mary as well. IMO has also drawn up evacuation plans for the roughly 20,000 seafarers stranded on board more than 1,600 vessels stuck in the Persian Gulf. Now, my first question, given the growing geopolitical tensions and security concerns, now what role do you think that IMO can play more in safeguarding the freedom of navigation and maritime safety, in particular when multilateral cooperation seems to be under strain? And should IMO continue the consensus-based approach in decision-making amidst this geopolitical chaos? I know it's a very heavy topic, but it's a very important one. I must confess that I've spoken to many of the shipping companies here, and these are some of the key questions that's on their mind. Come, Arsenio.
Fair enough. My turn now, right?
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, and thank you again to Singapore for this great opportunity. And thank you for making it happen again. We haven't seen each other for a couple of years. And as you said, we had a great relationship, particularly during the COVID pandemic. And I do miss you in the sector, remember that.
Me too.
I don't read my interviews. I don't watch my videos either. So I have to take your word for what you said that was published there. The media, in general, they're very kind to me. I'm actually interested to see what happens with my accent on the AI. That's just for me. And thank you for coming back from lunch. This is quite a full room. I was hoping that several of you will stay outside just enjoying lunch. Okay, let's go now very serious on this. The freedom of navigation is non-negotiable. The safety of the seafarers is paramount for us at IMO, and is the reason why, as soon as the Council finished its session, my team and I drew the plan to evacuate safely the seafarers as soon as we can do so. And that means that all the security requirements have to be met. We don't want an experience with something similar to what happened last Friday, when there was one announcement, there was a quick reaction. We immediately set up a meeting with media, shipping industry representatives, and I'm very grateful for how quickly they respond to us as well. And I was immediately contacting the relevant countries in the region, including Iran, to find out some more information about exactly what openness of the Strait of Hormuz meant. And it became very clear to me that actually was not the freedom of navigation as we are used to at IMO. And that's the reason why I asked for caution and not to react right away. Now, multilateralism may be challenged right now. We have experienced that in some negotiations that we may touch upon later on. Not many people may remember what happened in October at IMO, but we already moved forward to what comes next. At the same time, even though there is a global challenge of multilateralism, I continue to see the governments coming together at IMO. And this is why I don't really believe that it's being challenged to the point that it's not working. It's okay to challenge any systems, and that includes multilateralism. And sometimes we don't all share the same opinions, but in general, we hold the same values. And I have maintained a very close engagement with all the countries in the region, and that extends to those that are involved in the conflict as well. And there is flowing of information. The fact that IMO immediately called an emergency council session and there was a full agreement with the declaration, and in particular to focus on the humanitarian aspects of the seafarers, at the same time that the freedom of navigation became something that no one is prepared to challenge, just highlighted how multilateralism is still alive. Then you have other countries that are actually coming together because of this crisis. I want to thank the government of Singapore, because it's been very outspoken that it's not prepared to negotiate on anything related to fees or tolls on a strait for international navigation. Then you have other coalitions led by the United Kingdom and France that has already the participation of over 50 countries, all preparing to support the evacuation plan of IMO as soon as we can do it, to uphold the freedom of navigation at any cost, and at the same time to even be ready to provide assets and expertise to clear the Strait of Hormuz from any hazards, including possible mines, as soon as it is the appropriate time. And they go beyond. They're actually prepared to even provide technical and expertise for the countries in the regions to continue to maintain the freedom of navigation and carry out all the operations for the same traffic. So that just highlights that the conversations that we're having, even as difficult that they may be sometimes, are actually fruitful, and we will not back down at IMO.
It's good to hear about all the efforts that's behind the scene. And I mean, being in IMO before, we know about all the negotiations. I wonder if you could share with the crowd here, given the intimacy that you have in the negotiations, what is the one key challenge and one opportunity that you see in the past few weeks in such negotiations?
One key challenge is that the root causes of the conflict, and it's what is affecting shipping, are beyond the remit of IMO. And I'm limited to sharing information with other stakeholders, with United Nations agencies, and with countries in general, for them to use it on the relevant forum where these kind of conversations take place. The positives, it's the incredible engagement and visibility that IMO is getting on this. Our evacuation plan was shared with all the countries in the region for them to provide comments, was shared with countries that are facilitating the bilateral talks to de-escalate the conflict. And at the same time, all those countries, particularly the littoral states in the Persian Gulf, have been very active in providing assistance to the seafarers, assistance to the ships, particularly when it comes to supplies, food, water, and fuels for the vessels to continue to operate, as well as medical support. So the community and the global community, because even the media, the general media, has actually kept that focus, particularly on the innocent seafarers that are trapped there. And I continue to be engaged and call for countries to provide more information of what we're doing and what we can do in order not only to protect and facilitate the seafarers until we can actually evacuate them, but also what else we can provide that may be beneficial to even some conversations that are beyond the remit of IMO.
I mean, seafarers are a soft spot for me and for many of us here. I wonder if there is one advice you would give to the shipping companies and the seafarers who are listening into this interview at this point of time. What would be a concrete advice, pragmatic advice you would be giving to the companies and the seafarers in the midst of this chaotic situation?
For the seafarers is to share their experience. We need to know everything that they're going through, and probably it's even go beyond just what's happening in the Gulf right now. We need to know the good practices that they experience, the fair treatment of the seafarers in every single circumstances, but also to know where they don't feel supported, where they don't see that their needs are being matched. For the companies, if I focus specifically on the situations that we have on the Strait of Hormuz, to have that, even if remotely, support to the seafarers, mental health, fatigue, and the stress that they're going through, it's something that we cannot experience sitting very comfortably here in this room. But the more that we demonstrate to them, not just by statements and by words, that we do care about them and that we are worried about their safety, the better that we'll actually be not only meeting our objectives of supporting the seafarers, but attracting more into this amazing sector. So some countries have established a 24/7 helplines for the seafarers. Others are actually even sponsoring some of the support on supplies that they need, since some of the costs are going up in the region as well. So for me, it's that proactivity from the companies, ship owners, ship operators, in actually getting in contact with them, listening to them, and even remotely provide that assistance. And please provide them with Wi-Fi access as well, so they can contact their families and let them know that they are fine.
So a few questions have come in from the audience. Alrighty. On this very topic, and then we'll move on to talent, and there's a couple of questions on decarbonization. So just to prepare you, Arsenio, let's still on a serious note. If the US continues to block NZF, will IMO be able to push for a new or revised version of the NZF?
Are we moving on to decarbonization already?
Yes.
Okay. So there's not. I want to be fair in this. There's not only one country that is pushing against the net zero framework. There may be one more visible country than others, and you highlighted the United States, and they're very clear on their position based on the document that they have put forward for the meeting next week. From my perspective, we have to be realistic as well, pragmatic and realistic. We have the ambition, and that is already there in the 2023 IMO GSG decarbonization strategy, and we are still on track by or around 2050. There was a small setback, and I call it a small setback, last October, but the focus from our side on the rules that we already have in place has not been diminished. I'm still calling on countries and the industry to provide that leadership and be the early movers. I know that the global situation and the economy is probably not in the right place, but there's still plenty of research and development that is ongoing, testing. I'm still getting the experience every time that I visit some countries on how much they are investing on this transition. And we also need to look at the areas right now where we can make progress, the areas where we need to probably spend a little bit more time in evaluating the concerns and how to address them. And we need to be creative. We should be focusing on where we can take the next steps and where we can provide further analysis, further timing in order to keep bringing that consensus. It doesn't mean that IMO is not meeting its goals. This was a very ambitious, if I put it in comparison with almost any other instrument, any other regulations, to develop and finalize it in 2 years, adopt it and start implementing it. So our objective remains the same. But let's also be realistic with the geopolitical climate that we are living right now, and where we can focus in taking the next steps, and when we need more time to address concerns.
As you know, I recall a few years ago, we were talking about multi-fuel transition. We were looking at various fuel type of vessels. There's hydrogen, there's ammonia, there's potential even nuclear. Now, with this net zero framework, and I also heard that there's quite a number of proposals that have also been put on the table as alternative. Do you see the push continue to be in a very committed manner, or because of geopolitics, and in fact for many of the companies, because of pragmatic economic reasons, fuel is getting more expensive, technology is not really there yet, that it could take a certain step back? So we are now moving on a more pragmatic economic and company approach.
It's a combination of both. You see, from the moment that we started, we knew that the alternative fuels will need some time to actually scale up to the level that are required in shipping. And the projections were early to mid 2030s. The cost was always going to be a main challenge as well, because of course, in comparison with the conventional fuels, they will not be at the same level, especially at the beginning of the transition. And this is why we were also working on economic measures to support that part of the process. Then we are not globally where we were just 3 years ago in 2023 when we made that commitment on the GHG strategy. That's something that we also have to take into account. But then, of course, we link that with everything that is happening right now. And we need to be more resilient, and even countries need to diversify their economies as well. The fact that if you link that to the conflict that is ongoing, we're missing 20% of the supply of oil for shipping.
Already.
Right? So that is another opportunity to diversify and prepare for the future, or the alternative fuels, alternative means of energy that can actually allow us to continue to provide for everybody else. So whenever we feel those challenges, we can look forward into how we're going to address them and again turn them into opportunity. Let's not always be negative here. And that doesn't mean that IMO it's either slow or is not meeting its commitments. We are pragmatic at the same time, and we need to look after the industry as much as we also do with all the member states.
Yeah, like what you said, with each crisis there's always an opportunity, and indeed if the supply of the oil were to be cut off, then there could be other opportunities for alternative fuel. Now, two specific questions here. How are you going to re-energize the net zero initiative? I know you mentioned a little bit, but another specific question that came in the current highly charged political environment, and what will specifically happen in MEPC 85? I know you are...
Now, just remind me, 85 is the one in November, right?
Yes.
Is the one in November, so 84 is the one next week. I can't believe that I had to actually get confirmation on that, so forgive me about it.
So the question is quite gentle.
Yeah, so what are we going to do for 25?
6 months.
Okay, ask me that question after next week. Because, I work step by step. People always want me to speculate in the future. If I could read the future, I probably would have won the lottery a few times right now. But no, the reason why I say ask me after next week is because my focus is in bringing back the negotiations at IMO in the way that we're used to do it, not to repeat what happened in October last year. So there are, and I'm going to clarify this, there are commenting papers, not new proposals, there are commenting papers to the net zero framework that has been approved. I know that I'm getting a little bit technical and probably boring for a few, but it's important to clarify that. So we have commenting paper that can allow us to either make progress, improve, or address some of the concerns on the net zero framework, and that is the kind of conversations that I'm expecting next week. The other thing that we are looking to provide is clarification as how we're going to then take the next steps, because there's a lot of emphasis and focus whenever I get the questions into the procedures. Didn't I know that procedures at IMO were so interesting? Because everyone wants to know when is the date for the extraordinary session, how exactly is that going to happen, who's going to call it, etc. Focus on the substance. That's where we make progress. That's where we actually take the right decisions. We will explain everything after next week in relation to the procedures and the conversations with the member states, but that is not an area that needs to be complicated. The more that we look on the details of all the proposals and the commenting papers that we have there, the easier it's going to be then reactivate the conversations next week. We will then have another 6 months for engagements because we don't stop working in between sessions of the MEPC. Neither does the Secretariat nor the member states. They keep engaging all the time, and Singapore has always been one of those countries that even uses platforms like this to actually further engage and have the dialogue. So once we go back onto the table in the way that we operate at IMO next week, then we start kicking and preparing for November.
So we can reconvene this panel again in 2 weeks' time. So that I can ask you this question again.
Am I free to come back in 2 weeks? I'm not free to come back I'm so sorry. I would love to come back to Singapore in 2 weeks' time, but I'm not free.
I'm sure MPA can fly me to London. I'll do a session with you over there. I have not been to London for a long time. No, I'm just
Will you come over?
Yes, I will.
I'm up for it. We got a deal. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to have a virtual session. Is that right? There you go.
Okay, so, but on a serious note, say 2-3 years from now, I mean, I recall 5 years ago, we were talking about, that hydrogen-fueled vessel is a possibility. We talk about potential electrification as well. And with this crisis, as what you mentioned, there's an opportunity. Say, maybe ask you to crystal ball, in 3 years' time, what would you see would be the fuel mix of our vessels in the waters?
I find it interesting that I just said earlier that I don't like to speculate, and you just want me to speculate.
That's the journalistic instinct in me, I'm sorry.
There's been progress, particularly in the safety aspects of fuels like methanol, ethanol, and ammonia. The next step for us is going to be hydrogen. The research and development continues on both type of, particularly when it comes to ammonia and hydrogen. Methanol and ethanol are easier to actually roll out into the sector. And I really can't tell you which is going to be the fuel. I wouldn't say that, I didn't say it a couple of years ago. I can't say it now. But even what we're living right now allows us to demonstrate further that we need diversity in shipping, that we need every single opportunities to allow us to decarbonize. On a more specific note in relation to how we are progressing this, and if I go to 2030, the measures that we have already adopted to enhance the efficiency on vessels are actually leading us to meet the 20% reductions that we expect. The 5% uptake, at least, of alternative fuels is the one that's still a challenge for us. I need more time. I'm not going to speculate right now exactly where we're going in the next 2 or 3 years with specific fuels.
Arsenio, that's a very fair statement that you have made. I want to now go back to our seafarers again. Again, I know it's a soft spot that you have. It's also something which we know they are the backbone of the entire trade, right, in the world, with global supply chain being. I want to go into maybe not just whoever is stranded, those that are stranded in the Strait of Hormuz, but talk about the future of them. Now with decarbonization, multi-fuel, actually in the past years, we've seen how AI has disrupted how organizations have been working, efficiency of productivity, agentic AI, Gen AI, all coming in to disrupt the way that, every organization, every individual is working. How do you see that going forward for our seafarers as well as for onshore work? Digitalization was quite an important factor. I remembered from door to door, from factory to door, it was like at least 18 touch points. How would you see the progress of this moving forward? And therefore, perhaps maritime, shipping could be a much more attractive industry.
Interesting that you say that, because we're not good at advertising ourselves. We really need to speak to the people outside the sector and, of course, maintain the visibility of how important, how relevant we are. When I meet with the new generation, I always take the opportunity to speak to cadets, and I did it yesterday as well. Yes, safety and security is some of the main questions that they normally have. I don't always have the answers for them. When it comes to how safe we can keep them in conflicts, I'm not going to lie to them. But it's one thing that I have to continue to reiterate, and is the fact that all the progress that we're making at IMO with autonomous ships, with digitalization and the introduction of AI, doesn't mean that we're going to get rid of seafarers. These are tools that we're bringing into the sector in order to support them on board. We're already creating a lot of administrative burden on the seafarers on board the ships, and those who have navigated, they know what I'm talking about. So what we're using with technology is to actually enhance the green credentials of shipping, the safety aspects, as well as support the seafarers on the daily jobs that they have to do on board. That's more that we can do in uptaking this. And this is why we developed recently is a high-level digitalization strategy, but is to look into using technology to enhance the certification of the seafarers and on the ships, the ship-to-port interface, the equipment that is on board that actually is going to facilitate all these aspects. At the same time, looking at the cyber risks that comes with these benefits. And then how we can push the sector to take more on board the benefits of AI. We're seeing from those that are already using it in order to enhance their efficiency in operations of the vessels, to reduce cost. Everybody knows that the best fuel is the one that you don't burn or that you don't use on board. And also how they can use that to enhance the efficiency operations of the vessels, including weather information that you will think that everybody takes on board. We have experiences that is not the case. So all this is what we're using at IMO to kind of make that change, but always keeping in mind that it's not just introducing technologies for the sake of it or because they are available. It's thinking on the end user, and this is the seafarers. With the revision that we're carrying out of the certification, training, and watchkeeping convention for seafarers, that's one of the aspects that we're focusing on, and to create that flexibility to allow technology to be part of the regulatory process, not in a prescriptive manner, but goal-based, so we don't have to wait too long to follow our procedures. My call in this case, and I'm actually looking at every single one of you, is on these negotiations, we need more seafarers in the room, more seafarers on the table, telling us what exactly they need, what their experiences are, and what they expect from us.
You know, now with agentic AI, that's what many of the organizations and companies we are all learning. We're actually training every single individual on how to use agentic AI. And the beautiful thing is that they're able to create agents themselves. And with the agents themselves, actually a lot of the process can be automated. I would imagine that on board a vessel, on board for a seafarer, technology being also younger in terms of profile, technology is very important, access is very important, and the ability to also be able to come up with new sort of applications that can help improve the efficiency. Are there efforts that's being done to crowdsource such initiative from the seafarers? Because I really like what you said about having more seafarers and their say at the table. Are there more initiatives that we can put in place to get the seafarers themselves to come and tell us what is it that will make them work more effectively?
So from our side, one of the key areas, particularly on social media campaigns, is to get directly in touch with the seafarers. Not only, for example, during the situations of the Strait of Hormuz, but on every single campaign that we do, we reach out directly to them. We have launched a couple of projects with organizations who represent the rights of the seafarers, or at least they have observer status at IMO. Where they can actually allow us to hear directly from them. Even to become more inclusive and diverse, we have partnered with WISTA to carry out surveys, and we reach directly to the seafarers to also hear their sides of what are the challenges for women to coming into the sector. So those are the examples that I can tell you from the side of IMO. And it's that visibility that is allowing us to really take scores and take note of what we are required to do. Something that I didn't know, for example, is the best means of communications that we have with seafarers is still Facebook, which for many now it's kind of obsolete. It's the best way for us to actually get information from the seafarers, communicate with them, and for them to share their experiences with us. So probably that is something that in the future may work with the private sector as well, the ship owners, ship operators, shipping companies, to see what else they can do from their side and kind of do that marketing campaign. And I don't know, sometimes even better we can use port state control activities. I'm not thinking out loud here, so apologies for this.
It's great that, you know, we are hearing really feedback, views, more initiative that's coming up.
My staff may not be very happy when I go back to London, but...
And I must also apologize, I've been asking questions that was not pre-prepared as well, but that's us, right? Because we're on the stage. There are a couple of questions that come in. Again, I think it's really talking about the dichotomy between shipping companies, UN, government coalition agencies, that there could be some tension and divides. Is IMO really walking the talk? And one specific question is actually, what would you say of critics of IMO who may feel that IMO could do a lot more? So this is more on the, how do I put it, governance side of the issues. How would you say to the critics, okay, maybe simplify, how would you say to the critics of IMO here that indeed...
The thing is, I don't take any comments as criticism. For me, it's an opportunity to either assess or evaluate the work that we're doing, whether we are communicating our results the appropriate way, whether we are reaching the right people, or whether we actually have to do more. So I don't take any of that as a criticism. I love the United Nations. I think that is an institution that means well, and of course is formed by member states. I love IMO. I have spent 20 years of my professional life just working for that organization. And there's a lot that has been done. Just look at how more efficient we are when it comes to oil pollution in relation to the 90s. How in 2024 there were 23 total losses of ships, which for many people, including me, that's too many. You go 2 decades back and it was over 200 ships that we were losing every year. How we actually, unlike what other people think, we have reduced emissions and they have plateaued now. The problem is that, of course, shipping trade continues to increase the number of vessels, but our measures since we're introduced in 2011 have actually demonstrated that we continue to be the most efficient means of mass transportation. Does it mean that we already meet all our goals? No. Does it mean that we can be better? Absolutely. And I always keep reminding what I learned in Singapore Maritime Week 2 years ago about the good, better, best in Singapore. And I actually like that because we shouldn't just rest in some of the successes that we have. Because for as much as we do for the seafarers, there's still increase of cases of abandonment and criminalization. We include safety, but there's still some accidents taking place. We move forward in decarbonizing, and then you have actions like geopolitics that have an effect. And we're constantly learning. So I prefer to see everything as constructive comments rather than criticism, and I prefer to receive it because it means that we are doing something right. When people don't talk to you, it's because you are irrelevant.
No, exactly. So I recall when I was in the media, when you receive a good comment and a bad comment at the same time, you tell yourself you've done a good job. And I like your approach about, it can be good, better, best, and what more can we do? And I must say that, having, known Arsenio for so many years, I would say I'm very impressed with the depth and the thought that you have put through in today's conversation about how, whether it's in security, maritime, whether it is in seafarers and fuel side, the decarbonization side of the house, the type of thought you have put into it. On a personal note, what keeps you awake and what keeps you excited?
Jet lag keeps me awake sometimes. That's it. Exciting, this sector, IMO. I love my job. If people, even when I was coming in here earlier, I got several people coming over and asking me if I was okay. I thought,
are you okay?
I'm absolutely fine. I'm concerned because there are certain things that I would like to sort out very quickly that is Strait of Hormuz, but I'm realistic of how far we can go. But no, if anything will wake me up at night, it's because I want to do more. And I keep meeting also people that are new to the sector, and I really enjoy speaking to them, because this is when I realize that we take things for granted. They come to shipping, they come to maritime, because they see it full of opportunities, exciting. I even met someone, I love planets and rockets, and if I can get a chance, I will go to the moon. But I met someone that spent 20 years working in aerospace, which for me, it's like, wow, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. And then he said, I left that because it's heavily bureaucratic, it's too regulated, it's too difficult to make progress. When it's shipping, there's so many opportunities, so many things happening. Who doesn't want to be here? But then we criticize ourselves. So now, let's turn the page. Let's actually see this industry for all the values that it has. And that's why I just cannot stay awake at night, because I sleep very happily and then just resting in order to be ready to perform the following day.
Really like your energy and enthusiasm. We've got about 3 minutes left. I think I would really fail my job if I don't give you the occasion to actually talk about what would be your outlook. What would be I know you don't like to predict, I'm sorry, but what would be the outlook that you have for shipping over the next 2 to 3 years? And also, what would be the priorities for yourself and for IMO? And this is appealing to the group of shipping companies who have families, who also have many seafarers who are on board the vessels.
Okay. I'll start with the priorities, because that's very close to the work that we're doing right now and the key messages that I've been sending this year. Seafarers is number one. It's not only on the training, but how we can protect them better from external factors like geopolitics, learning from these circumstances, and how we're really going to invest in them so they are not criminalized, that they have a better life on board the ships, that they are better treated, that we look after their fatigue, mental health, issues like harassment, including sexual harassment, everything that we are working at IMO. I want to see more of the tangible results of those actions that we take at the organization. Then it's the environment. And it's not just greenhouse gas emissions. We are protecting the environment in several areas. We are looking into underwater radiated noise. Ballast Water Management Convention is being revised. Ship recycling, it's also going to look into what we need to do now that it has entered into force after many years of waiting. Biofouling, a new convention that it's being developed. So we're still looking into all the different aspects of the environment, including atmospheric pollution. Don't get me wrong. We have a lot of work to do there. Then the rest is safety. Safety is paramount. Sometimes it's because it doesn't hit the headlines on the media, it doesn't mean that we are not working about safety at IMO. That's kind of the core work that we do. 2/3 of the meetings of the organization every year have to do with safety and security. And that is embedded into why we started with the autonomous surface, the maritime autonomous surface ships, the MAX code, because the technology is advancing and we didn't want to, I'm going to use this expression that I don't use very often, we didn't want to be left behind. And actually start giving that guidance and looking from the aspects of liability, etc. Where do I see the sector in 3 years? Or where would I want to see the sector? Again, more diverse, more proactive, and to maintain the visibility that we are creating right now. We've been put on the map. We want to attract people. We want people to recognize what we do, and we want to engage with other sectors, other industries, in order to understand better what we do and to be part of our solutions, because we're not going to be safer by ourselves. We can't decarbonize alone. And even protecting the seafarers, we need justice departments, foreign affairs ministers to be very much in sync with the transport entities in every single country. So the more that we continue this proactivity and move beyond the statements, the more that actually our rules are not only going to make sense, they're going to be effective.
Thank you so much, Arsenio. I must say that, coming back and listening to you really brings back a lot of meaning. As you mentioned, shipping is super important. I mean, in CapitaLand, we do logistics, supply chain as well. And what you do here really affects a lot of industry and a lot of people. With that, I want to thank Wee Kiong for bringing both of us together, and also to thank you for a very in-depth discussion and sharing your thoughts. And all the best to your work, because it's very important.
Thank you. And see you in 2 weeks online.